So I do some somatic work with my
Oh,
clients
nice.
as well. So that's very refreshing for me to hear. But I'm
Oh,
sure for a lot of the audience, it's still very new. And you said the first thing was to feel safe. So
yeah.
can you share how do you do that? And what other somatic practices do you practice now if you have to do something which requires courage, which requires overcoming fear or anxiety, for that matter?
I'm not a somatic coach. You are more about the practices. I will tell you what my coach taught me. And it wasn't a teaching, it was just one of my first sessions. I worked with many different types of coaches. What I learned from him was really on safety. And he had me stand on a stage and he pretend stage. And after I froze, my manager was like, I'm really worried about you. This feels like post-traumatic stress. And it was. And he explained to me that at the point of impact, when somebody has an accident or something, that the emotion gets locked in their body, which this was very new to me in all honesty. But he had me stand on a pretend stage and said, okay, tell me how you feel. What would, and I explained. And he said, what would make you feel safe? And just asking me that question.
Mm.
And I said, a table and a chair. And I say that openly. So for the first couple of years, now I wasn't leading, I was a colleague going through development and everything. But the first couple of years, I had a table and a chair. And I needed that. I also had water. That was another thing that made me feel safe. So it wasn't an exercise per se, but if you ask me what I do, I also, before any time, even now, before I get on a stage, I will snap my fingers by my side just to remind me to ground.
Mm.
Because when I'm ungrounded, I'm not my best. When I'm grounded, I'm much better at what I can do. And, but coming back to the somatic coach, when he asked me what makes you feel safe, a table and a chair, and I ended up shaping any engagement around a table and chair, I would say, oh, you don't need me presenting. Let's sit at a round table.
Mm.
The funny thing was that's what created deeper discussions, was not presenting and talking to people,
Yeah.
but inviting them to a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And sometimes it can be so simple, but also so meaningful, right? Because normally we associate a leader as standing on a stage. But I think there is also a different way of leading, which could be different for everybody, which is like on a round table and inviting people and creating that bond of togetherness rather than somebody higher up on a stage. So thank you for sharing that. And also, I think another part is like the courage or the openness to ask for what you need, right? Because many times that fear doesn't allows us to ask for what we know that we need or we want, right? So that
Absolutely.
ask itself is a huge leadership act.